Hey there. This is just a quick little test here, trying to see. Okay. Hey there. So it looks like I am live on YouTube. I remember I did something like this quite a few months ago, and it was a disaster, a complete disaster because I couldn't get my live feed on, and so darn stressful, man. You're trying to do stuff like this and connect with people. I am when you're working all the time, you're working full time, you got your kids and everything. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Hey, I got somebody like Javier Hernando. How's it going there, buddy? Yeah, one person online. I don't have any plan right now. All I'm doing is just sort of sketching away. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just sort of just having fun. What had happened earlier, if you guys check any of the last videos that I have out there, was I just posted something which is also live, but that was an ultimate failure as well because I didn't know that it wasn't being broadcast live and I couldn't see anybody here in the chat. So, and this is really funny because all these Google Hangouts and stuff I have to, for some reason, I have to put the volume low because there's a delay between YouTube and the Google Hangouts feed in itself. And it completely confuses me when I start to use it. And so anyway, all I'm doing is I'm just sort of just sketching, and this is something I just do as far as quick therapy for me. It's funny, a lot of my friends in our studio, the last thing they do when they come back is many people just don't want to draw at all. If you're drawing all day or whatever it is, then the last thing you want to do is pick up a pencil or pen or whatever it is and just start sketching something. It's really annoying. For me, I think of drawing as something completely different for me. To me, it's a way to express myself and to just feel good about creating something on paper. I'm not, hey, Richard Fernandez, and we got Riley McDowell. Looks kind of like an SE Venom. I don't know what that is, by the way. Maybe I should, but I don't. I am not, and because this is live, I'm not being careful at all here. What I draw is what I draw. It can even suck big time. And to me, I'm not gonna worry too much about it. This is what happens when you're doing something live. Doing something live and talking as you're drawing is completely different than focusing and drawing without any interruption. Two different dynamics altogether. I'd like you guys to look at the last video, though, that I just posted up, because the last video was really talking about why drawing is important, and if you start to develop a habit and proficiency in drawing and learning your basics and your fundamentals, then you're gonna realize that you can do a lot with it. Not just drawing cars, but drawing just about anything you want. I didn't realize any of this, by the way, when I started. In fact, I couldn't stand drawing things like boxes and that sort of thing. I don't want to repeat everything I said in that video because I just published it, so should definitely look at the last one. And I draw, a much simpler car right here, which is just talking about form building and just doing something very quick, and why why fundamentals are very important. A lot of people don't, they like to start off with the good stuff, which is very challenging when you start with something at the beginning and trying to draw something that is sexy or whatever it is, right? Because a lot of people don't want to wait and want to draw good, which you can. And what I was explaining earlier before was that all that can be accomplished if you're just sort of drawing from observation and just kind of sharpening up how you observe the world around you, and which is what I am starting to do more often. I just enjoy the very process of just drawing something, and it no longer has to be automotive related. And I'm finding that you can do anything you want. I mean, you can really draw just about anything if you have your fundamentals down, or at least the path to getting fairly decent is shortened. We talk about this, Richard Fernandez. Hey, thank you. I'm a fan of you now too. Just a quick shout out to Richard. Says he's a big fan, which is nice. It's always good to have fans. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about. I was talking about drawing. Anyway, it'll come back to me in a moment. Oh yeah, I was talking about the path of getting somewhere quicker. That when you start to learn certain fundamentals and techniques, that when you try to draw other stuff, you're not really starting from scratch anymore. I was listening to a podcast where somebody was talking about this, and it's pretty interesting because I firmly believe it. First of all, you have to believe that you can accomplish something, and that you can accomplish something great. And then you have to take that action and work toward it so that you get better and better at it. Nothing's going to come easy, but if you spend the time and the energy at the beginning, then you will eventually see the fruits of your labor. And that as you progress and grow, whether you are working at a company, that those skills are indeed transferable to other areas. You don't ever have to really start from scratch. It's something I talk about actually on my website, my podcast. You talk about being the jack of all trades, and a very, very interesting subject, because a lot of people think being a jack of all trades is a bad thing. It's a negative thing, that you're really not master of anything. You're just kind of, good at a little bit here and good at a little bit there. And I don't know if that's really true, because as you start to work and you develop years and years of experience, you can, let's say you may take the managerial route, right? You may not want to, you may want to lead, you may want to be a leader. And so you won't end up sketching as much anymore. And I know a lot of some of my friends, I also kind of manage, so I don't sketch that often. You got people who are generating the ideas or whatever it is, and you're leading some activities, and it's different. And so a lot of young people can probably just blow me away at drawing because they're actively involved, and I'm not. I'm just, this is my relaxation, and I just enjoy, this process is just, it's really just so much fun. It's incredibly, what do you call, meditative. It's like a meditative experience for me. I would like to see if I can have some of these quick, spontaneous videos where we can just sort of chat and talk about things. You can ask me questions. By the way, if you got some questions you want to ask me right now, you can ask me that. You don't have a lot of people online, but that's okay. You can still just ask me something. All right, I'm just about done with this. Kind of a quick, fun little sketch. It doesn't take very long. I don't know, some sort of a, now this would make a pretty nice Hot Wheel, I guess. How long, point blank, how long have I been drawing? Well, I've been drawing for, I'm afraid to tell you, but I've been drawing for, I don't know, ever since I was a kid. And that was a long time ago. I've been drawing, I was always kind of known as the classroom artist, but I didn't really train myself. I wasn't really that good. I thought I was good, but I really wasn't. You don't realize how bad you are until you actually take training and you have to unlearn all your bad habits. But I've been drawing now for over a decade, at least. I mean, if you're maybe 15, maybe good 15 years. Yeah, good 15 years. And I'm still learning stuff. And I'm not, I don't know everything. I mean, some of the people that I follow, to generate ideas, you're constantly trying to learn new techniques and just improve yourself, which is really, really important, because learning new techniques, you have to always, if anything, challenge your brain a little bit. Do I take requests for drawing? Yeah, sometimes I do. I think, the way I'm trying to structure the channel now, Driven to Draw. I don't know if you've been to my website, but if you have not, I would definitely head on over to the website. There's a lot more information than just the videos. There's some podcasts and stuff you can listen to. What I'd like to do is really to kind of structure some sort of a, how do I explain it? Something that's a little bit more structured course to get people started at the beginning. Because I think people are so mesmerized by all the basic stuff, or I'm sorry, all the flashy stuff, that they don't realize that you have to kind of use a combination of flash and fundamentals. It's never good to just always focus on drawing really complex stuff. I mean, you can, but you have to pace yourself a little bit. Do fundamentals and then go on to the next thing. Michael, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. That's harder than mine. Can you please explain how to paint reflections on a car? I mean, that color that car with some sort of reflections. Well, I think, okay, painting, depending on whether you want to paint or whether you want to use markers or something. So it just depends on the medium that you're using. But painting reflections on a car, they require a little bit of studying, of doing things like looking at reference photographs and sort of dissecting, what is the what is the different value and the shades that you see between the lights and the darks, and really doing a lot of different studies and asking yourself questions. What makes something that is shiny? So you may have like a core reflection. So typically when you want to describe something that is reflective, a reflective surface, then you have to communicate what is being reflected onto that car. You know, what are the objects? So when you think of like a ball, a sphere, um, let's see if I can, hold on a second. Let me see if I can find something. Might be difficult for me here, but give me a moment. Okay, you put me on the spot here, but let's just take this for example. If I'm taking this cylinder and this is not, it's probably not shiny enough because it's kind of like a brushed aluminum. But when you talk about a core reflection, the core reflection is the reflection off of the apex of the curvature, which is typically the the radius right here. So when an object is, I'm trying to see how I can orient this. When I'm looking at the camera and looking at my hands, and everything is like flip-flop, so I'm really confused as I do this. All right, so let me do this. So if you're looking at some sort of a curved, surface, okay, when you're looking at the ground plane, let's say that, okay, you're looking at this surface, it's, it's a cylinder, but when you're looking at side panels of like a car or something like that, typically this section right through here is what's going to be reflecting the environment onto this surface, which is that apex of that curvature. And so in section form, when you are, let's see, so when you have, oops, wrong one. Oh, hold on a second. Let me do this. Right on here. Let's just say that we have, when you're looking at this door panel, for instance, and I'm saying that this door panel has this sort of a shape, okay, in section form. All right. Now, this is basically the apex. All right. That is the peak of your curve. And the peak of your curve is going to basically reflect whatever environment. You could have you can have a bush or something like that that's off in the distance. That's all going to be reflected onto the surface. And what you have to look at it as, it's really all the objects that are going to be reflecting normal to the surface. Okay, so as the curve goes away like this, so if you're looking at this cylinder, well, just think of it as a mirror, that each point that is normal to this curve is going to reflect what it's seeing projected normal to that particular surface. So oftentimes when you look at these surfaces in the car, that's why you see all these midtones, because you're really seeing the sky that's being projected off of the surface, because that's what the surface is seeing. Okay. And when you get down closer to this part, then you're going to see all the details and objects that are going to be reflected onto this shiny surface around the vehicle. So that might mean, like right here, we oversimplify all this stuff here, right? Because this is essentially, all this stuff is meant to be something like foliage or a tree, and you'll see that. So next time when you look at a car or any other kind of object, you really have to look at, why is this thing shiny? What's actually being reflected off of this vehicle? You have to ask those questions. You have to think about that and reflect on it. Pardon the pun. Okay, so there are things that, and what we do as designers or artists was that we just kind of create the illusion of a shiny surface. So we may just add, for instance, I was talking about, this. So if there's a core shadow, not core shadow, but a core reflection line here, all this stuff is really the reflection or just the objects that we're seeing back here, right? So which could be a bush or whatever it is. We don't get into details here when I'm drawing something like this. All it is, because all we're trying to do is just simplify it. But you can get fancy. You may have like, okay, you might do something like this where, hey, there's like a tree or there's like a bush and it's doing all this other stuff here. All right. And then when you get to this stage, then you have, softer gradients. It's basically when you're drawing this stuff, you're taking a cotton swab and then you're just taking the hues and the colors from the sky and then you're projecting them back onto here. Okay. And your core shadows are basically I'm sorry, I keep saying core shadow. The core reflection is basically going to be the probably the darkest part, which is going to be the color of your vehicle. So if you got red, then you'd go with red in this area. All right, then you have these, this bluish reddish tones here on the top surface. And then you may have another, core shadow, which is, I do mean core shadow through here, because if the light comes from this direction, then this area right here where the light passes becomes a shadow area, right? If light's hitting all this stuff, the sun's coming through here, then there's going to be a point where when it goes past the sun, you get a shadow area. And all this stuff you'll understand when you start to, look at examples and dissect all this stuff up. All right, so here, same thing. Like when you're looking at windows and things, same deal. You're going to have a reflection of the foliage, trees, or whatever it is that's coming to the apex. So you take a section of that window, again, what this window is seeing is the reflection of, whatever tree or something like that, bush, whatever it is, and that's basically being projected to that. It's so messy and terrible. What's this next question? Got 81 Boke. 81 Boke. Okay. What are some techniques to draw better ellipses and cylinders? All right, so icy cold, you're right. You got to draw them every day. Okay, so techniques for drawing ellipses, I'd say that, and I don't know, you may have seen this several times on YouTube, but drawing ellipses, they're not easy. I am going to put together probably some fundamental stuff, courses for this kind of thing. But if you're drawing ellipses, one of the easiest things that we start off with is when you're drawing a box, is that you start to dissect this box by drawing the diagonals to the four corners. All right, and then you start to intersect the lines, finding the midpoint. So when you start off, this is very hard, and the reason why Mr. Icy Cold or ICU Cold is saying you got to practice this every day is because you just haven't developed the motor skills yet for this. So the idea is to make sure you're hitting these points, these 4 points. Okay. Now, when you're doing ellipses, I do have a course that goes through all this stuff in a lot more detail than I'm doing here, which does part of these things too. But it depends on when you're starting out, it's really hard to do this freehand because, like I said before, you have to work at drawing lines that are straight. And by the way, you don't have to draw it freehand. You can use tools. There's absolutely no reason for you to not use some sort of aid, especially at the beginning. So get yourself ellipse templates. You don't have to, and it depends on how serious you are. I have large ellipse templates, small ellipse templates, and all of them are value add to have. But if you're not serious, then just getting like small ellipse templates is enough. You can go to any like Dick Blake art store and they'll have like a range from 10 degrees to I think 60 degrees. So again, the idea is to practice, your muscle control and being able to nail these ellipses, right? And you just do pages and pages of those. Okay, Richard Fernandez. Yeah, speed forms. Yeah, I should, try to do something like that. I was thinking of getting into speed forms as well. That's a pretty good idea. In fact, I have a video, I think, on YouTube. It's old. I mean, if you go to some of my older videos, you'll be able to find speed forms. So at least I call them form swatches. So if you just look up form swatches, I think on YouTube, it might even pop up. I don't know. It may or may not. I don't know. But yeah, so basically those are just sort of drills that you do. But speed forms you can do digitally. You can do them with markers. You can kind of tackle them any way you want, whatever medium you want to use. I would say marker. Marker is always the best at the beginning, because if you don't do markers at the beginning, or if you don't draw by hand, then you got to remember that digital is just a tool, and it's you have to assume that for you to have good results, then your core fundamental knowledge has to be strong. So I hope that makes sense. Speed forms. Okay, who else? Yeah, and also shows how to draw a speed form. Right, can you show us how to draw speed forms in perspective? Okay, so we were talking about that one. I'm working, like I said, I'm going to be working more on that. Oh, thank you so much. I love draw cards so much, but I can't draw them with real reflections. Okay. All right. So anyway, Michael, like I explained before, that's a kind of a good, what I was talking about as far as this is concerned. I think hopefully that gave you just an overview, an example of whether that made sense. Let's see. I'm just kind of going through the comments here. Got some more people that are coming, looks like. 12 people that are watching. All right, 12 people. 12 people. 12 people and 11 thumbs up. Hey, come on, man. What happened to the 12th one? I guess they dropped off. All right. Let's see. Basic shading. Yeah. All right. So basic shading. That's also a very good question. Basic shading should always start with boxes. Okay. Basic shading, when you're doing boxes, you have to look at what is the value distribution, and that's also going to be dependent on where your light source is. Okay. I won't be able to get into that tonight, but basically you had to look at the different kind of value range on these sides. So if the light is coming here, then the value distribution on these other three sides are going to be different. this is obviously going to be your lightest right at the top. If you're coming here diagonal, then you're going to have this one as probably the lightest. This is going to be the darkest side, and this is going to be midway. All right, and that's something that I'm actually putting that one together also. I have a video that I'm trying to put together to help people understand what is the actual value distribution. You know, would you use a black? When do you use a black? Or when do you use a different shade of a black? Scott Robertson does really good stuff with this, but you know, for me, it always makes more sense when you actually do the lighting studies. Nobody does that. Okay. Nobody does it. But one of the things that I found for things to be for you to be able to commit things to memory and to have really good understanding is to do things yourself that way. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to be doing something with lighting studies that nobody has really done, which should give you a full range of templates that can help you, which might go in like a premium section or something. At this perspective, or is it the same technique for, is it, okay, is it easier? Xenon 3 says, is it easier to draw at this perspective, or it's the same technique for all? Okay, so can you clarify your question? I don't quite understand what you mean by that. Is it easier to draw at this perspective, or same technique for all? So yeah, just, you know, send me another note here so I can maybe understand exactly what you mean. Just going through some other questions here. Matthew Can says, keep it up. Thank you, Matthew. That's cool. All right, so everyday bodybuilding. Good, we've got the bodybuilder. I like that. I used to bodybuild, and now I don't. All that sort of starts when you have wife and kids, and your kids demand your time. So I oftentimes, right now, I mean, look, it's 10:30. The kids are in bed, and typically, if they see me drawing, they say, "Stop drawing and start playing with us." So I was watching your other video. You got good at figure drawing before vehicles. Also, how long do you think it takes to really start to grasp Robertson's first book? It's definitely tough. Yes, that is a great question. All right, so Scott Robertson is first of all, he's a phenomenal teacher, and his books are terrific. I have it, by the way. His books are great. They're an excellent reference tool, but they are very highly technical, and they are difficult, and it's a different way of learning. It's a very technical way of learning. And I think that for me, I'm trying to think of how to say this, because everybody's different. Everybody learns at a different pace, and everybody has a different way of learning. Scott Robertson's methods is one method, okay, and it's a very technical method. And the reason why he goes through his methods in that way is because he gives rational thought and reason. There's a physics behind it to everything that he does, which is great. It's just that it's so detailed that it's a lot of information for people to comprehend at once. And I think at the same time, it can create a little bit of fear when you're starting, right? When you're doing that stuff. So you have to kind of use a different combination of things. You have to start with your basics and your fundamentals. So when he's talking about drawing your boxes and drawing them in different views, then you have to keep doing that till you are comfortable with it before you progress to the next stage. And most of the stuff really is just about taking action and just diving deep into it and just doing the work. If you don't do the work, then you can't improve, right? So the more you do it, the better you get. I know many of you hear this stuff all the time. It's sort of the same mantra that every designer tells you, but it's really true. It's not BS. It's absolutely true. And I never really believed it. I'm gonna admit something, okay? When I finished with college and I finished my design degree, I did both my design and my engineering degree. And I didn't go to one of those private schools. I ended up later working on my craft, and I didn't realize, how much effort that really was, right? Because I went to school for product design, and I learned a lot of transportation design stuff. My friends were teaching. They went to Art Center. They would go to CCS, and I learned a lot of their techniques. And what I learned from it was that I was doing a lot of stuff that wasn't quite correct. And I also didn't have respect for it, to be honest. So when I first started working and I saw this, I'm like, this will be easy, piece of cake. And it's not. I mean, you really have to work and work and work. It really sucked. But at the same time, like if you saw this other video, that once you get through that stage and you finish that and you go through it, you go through the headache and you go through the grind, then you really come out on top. You really are able to utilize that skill set and utilize it for many other different things. So it's really cool stuff. Discuss 2D drawings, techniques, tips. So I've drilled everything like crazy. My body is starting to fall apart. 2 and CGMA here. We can. Yeah, I know. It's like page 1 saying, okay, I'll check that out. Page 170. Okay. I've got that. I've actually got both the stuff. Yes, they are. Like I said, though, you have to really, a lot of it is just going to be practice, or then maybe even thinking about how to do it a different way. It's like, just kind of think back to how you typically learn things. And this is something that was difficult for me previously. And what I mean by difficult was just learning process in general. Forget about whether it was drawing. But when I was younger, I used to feel real bad because I didn't know enough about computers. And I used to be afraid of computers. My brother was a big computer whiz. He was into programming in 6th grade, and I stayed away from all tech right up to I got into college, and then I didn't have a choice. But it all came down to me feeling bad that I didn't think that I could learn very well. And the mistake I made was that I would use one source and I would make the determination whether I had the capacity to understand something based on reading one source. So sometimes, and all that changed when I started to read multiple articles, and I started to look at how different people were using different approaches to explain something. So sometimes it's not just the one book. You may have to look at several other different books or other videos to kind of put it all together so that it makes sense to you. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but it's meant to, and because that's what helped me. So I got into even building my own computers. In the end of it, I started building my own computers. I was curious with I didn't feel like having to always upgrade my computer and spend like $3,000 or something. So I used to want to know, well, how does it really work? How does the CPU work? And what is the basic architecture of the motherboard, and how does information travel? So then you start getting into highways, and when things were explained that, hey, the closer your CPU is, or the closer your video card is to your CPU or the central processing power, then faster information can be relayed back and forth, right? And that makes total sense. But until they explained it that way, I didn't know what they're talking about, right? You don't know. So you have to try different methods and find the method that works for you. But I had to say, terrific book. Robertson stuff is really, really awesome stuff. So, how long did it take you to click to draw cars? Ooh, I think it was a while. You know, it's a layered approach, just like any other thing that you do in life. It's or anything that you get into. It's really a layered approach. That's how your brain works. It's you slowly build on existing knowledge. That's why when I was talking in the previous video about drawing boxes and positioning the boxes in perspective, if you don't know how to do that, if you're not able to rationalize a basic shape like a cube, then it's going to be much more difficult for you to rationalize that, right? I mean, doesn't that make sense? I had a lot of difficulty at the beginning when I was drawing because I wanted to skip this because I just wanted to see some cool stuff, man. I just want to draw some cool shit. That's how it was. And we're all like that. I want to draw cool shit. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But drawing cool stuff is a different category. That means that gets into your ability to observe and just replicate what you see. But if you're going to be a designer, or if you're going to learn how to draw something that's original, then you need these fundamentals in order to do it. You can still be a great artist. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just observing and drawing. Just like I was mentioning earlier in my video that, you know, I don't draw animals, but I love it because it gives me a completely different perspective on details, on how I can recognize details and communicate that on 2D, right? But I'm still using a lot of the same principles that I use in my drawing and my practice of how I do line weight, all that other stuff. So everything is kind of transferable. But you have to be willing to want to learn. You have to be willing to want to do it. Sorry, that's okay. That's all good. It's all good. GT3, yeah. This sucks, man. Sometimes I'm really ashamed. This is I hate drawing stuff live. There's so much. I actually like this, to be honest, better. You know, this actually is a lot easier for people to understand. That's what people should be focusing on, actually. If you're starting out, you should do more of those. Or draw actually this with wheels. Just elongate it. Just get a rectangular box and just add wheels to it. That's what you should do. And I'm serious. I'm not even joking about that. That's what you should do at the beginning. Use a combination of the fundamentals and then going back and looking at reference and then drawing form, then go back and forth, and that should help. Better than what I could do. I'm sure, man. You try, you'll do okay. You'll do all right. How important is drawing people for transportation design? Can drawing people help you draw cars better? That's an interesting question. Okay, so let me think about how to answer that. Drawing people. It doesn't directly help you to draw cars, but drawing people helps you to handle different shapes and perspective. Okay, it adds to your skill sets in your arsenal of weapons when you're drawing. Okay, it adds to your skill set. You're not drawing, for instance, this when you're doing a car. Where people are advantageous for you is if you get into interiors and you're showing the interaction of somebody in the vehicle touching overhead console or interacting in some way. That's where it's probably more useful for you. Okay, it's not as useful if you're just, you know, drawing people for the sake of drawing people. But yeah, for me, that's not the reason why I'm drawing people. I just love that. I just love that kind of stuff. I used to want to be when I was younger, I used to want to do movie poster art. I used to want to be like Drew Struzan. I just love that stuff. I just really enjoy drawing as many different things as I can, because for me that interest is different. You can make it something. I got a buddy of mine, John Blow, who is also a designer. He's a manager actually now, but he has and also a blog, Trooper. Is it Trooper Treehouse? Trooper Treehouse, and his stuff is excellent. He's amazing at drawing people. And when we started off at work together, I used to be so jealous of him because he would draw all these sketches of the interior with the interaction, very stylized, very, what do you call, fashion designer-esque type of language when he drew, and it was awesome. Actually, if you go to my blog and you go to the podcast and you see John Blow, I think that was Expanding One's Creativity was the podcast. Listen to that. It's a great podcast, and then you can see his work. There's a link also to his work, and I tell you, every time I see it, I still get jealous. He's awesome. So anyway, back to your original question. Does it help? It helps you to just rationalize other shapes and perspective, and then that helps you with that just kind of adds. It's like I told you, that layering effect. It adds to your further understanding with shape. So when I draw all these things like these vehicles, then hey, when I start to get to this, I'm using some of those same concepts. So it's indirectly, it helps. Let's see. Is there a different John Blow from the guy who made The Witness? I'm sure it is a different guy. Yeah, speed form ideation, I would say it's pretty important. But you know what? Uh, I would start by just looking at existing vehicles, understanding what's popular out there, and just trying to replicate it. Always start with what you see, and then try to practice that form language. And then once you have a solid understanding of that, you can go into say, well, how can I manipulate this and do something different? I mean, that's all part of research, right? Look at history of some vehicles and their designs and try to understand, what made this thing so special. And speed forms, when you're doing speed forms, let me try to remember, what would we do? Speed forms were done with markers. So you would do all these, these shapes that would kind of wrap and sort of get, creases and that sort of thing. And we'd work with gray markers. So we would create all sorts of things, but you may even use drapery, right, or cloth, and you use some of those things. Or you would maybe even model something out of clay. That was also something that you would do. But most of the time is just, speed forms. You can look at even found objects and see how do you manipulate, some of the found objects. I mean, there's a lot of organic like shapes going on, and flame surfacing going on in automotive design and stuff. All that crap is going to go away probably when we get autonomous vehicles, because autonomous vehicles are now going to be about the experience inside the vehicle. If you're not going to drive, I mean, just think about that. You don't have the steering wheel package to worry about. You don't. The way people use the vehicles is now going to be more related to how we use things at home, right? Staying connected with technology. So people may not even care as much about the exterior. I don't know. But to maximize room, you're going to end up being more boxy. So does the sketching get you the job? More buddies for exterior design. Okay. No. Okay. So in, you have to, when you interview for a design job, you have to show not just a high competence. If you are in automotive design and you're looking at exterior, I think there is probably more focus on the styling, right? On the, how flashy your concepts are, right? Something that really gets people excited. If you're working on interiors or if you're a product, then the idea matters. The problem solving matters. This is, all this stuff is, it's a different problem solving. It's an aesthetic problem solving. All right. But when you get into like user interface and people interacting with stuff, getting into tactile feel, you got different materials, you got uh, how does the surface feel on a knob, for instance. What are the shapes of the knobs? Does it allow you to have a nice grip? Does it feel good when you touch the shape? Does it conform to your hand? All those things. uh, in addition to that, product design is a lot more with solving a need, or problem solving. And so there might not be as much of an emphasis to sketching as there might be for the idea, right? You don't have to be the best renderer to solve a problem, right? I mean, you have to show a very core understanding of what the problem is, and what kind of, and does the solution that you have, does it solve the problem? So, whew, man, this is going way longer than I thought. Woo! This is great though. I'm kind of enjoying this, huh? Well, I'm going to probably stop it right here. And I've got more videos that are going to be coming. The videos, though, won't be all related, by the way, to automotive, because I really want to make it a point that you have to exercise your mind to draw many, many different things, because the more you draw stuff that's not related to automobiles, the better your understanding of perspective, and just broadening your mind and broadening your perspective. I really would like to do something different with this channel, and maybe get more into uh, online type of schooling type of thing. I don't know. You can tell me what your thoughts are on that stuff. So your feedback and what you guys would like to see, it's all good. But I would still encourage you to head on over to Driven to Draw, and definitely check out the videos. We have a video library. It's extensive. And a lot of all that stuff is free. So definitely have a look, and let me know your thoughts also about the blog. And I've got a, what is it? I've got a Ask Arv as well. There's a tab. So if you got questions, don't be shy. Just ask away. And then I'll think of seeing if I can have a regular report on doing these kind of videos where I just kind of come online and start chatting with you guys, and maybe control the timing factor, because I can keep going on and on, which is not a good thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to be taking off and start getting back into some other work here. So I hope you enjoyed it though. And I really appreciate all of you that have joined and have watched now, and took the time to ask some questions, and some very thoughtful questions too. So very cool stuff, guys. Seriously appreciate it. So some sort of art, nice card drawing is that a lot of people enjoy on social media. Should sell and work online. Yeah. Everyday bodybuilding. Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed it. Glad you enjoyed it. Sweet. Okay, guys. Save some for the next time. If you have not joined my blog, I think I will try to have, I'll send out an email and see if I can send out some, just a note to you guys that, hey, when's the next time I'm going to have, uh, a quick demo or something where I'm just going to draw, and hopefully I won't screw it up, real bad, because even me, here I am, it's intimidating for me too, but it's okay. All right. Okay. Again, I'm going to go, and we'll see you next time, Driven to Draw. Have a good one.